where young women get a second chance at take two. Hi, my name's Lanita Duke, and welcome to the Duke Report. Today, we're going to take a look at welfare reform, seen through the eyes of Take three. Hi, my name's Lanita Duke, and today we're going to look at welfare reform through the eyes of young women directly affected by it. We're here at the Pivot program, and Pivot is an education and training program for young teen moms who, let's say, are between 17 and 24. Here they learn vocational training as well as get their GED. Pivot provides an array of services which includes child care, GED, and vocational training. With me is Nia Gray, also from Grassroot News. Nia, what are some of the kind of issues you're going to cover here? Take two on that. Nia, what are some of the issues you're going to cover here? Okay, now I want to do a close-up shot. So let's change the shot. Don't say I don't know.
Well, tell me.
Say we're going to talk to some young women, and we're going to ask them their ideas about welfare reform. You're going to talk to some muckety-mucks and get their opinions and ideas on welfare reform. Ready? We got a different shot. Let's get tight, just our faces and the mic. You know, for a different edit shot.
Yeah. You're basically full frame, and your shoulders are, the corners of your shoulders are just out of the frame.
Okay, great.
Okay, we're shooting.
Hi, I'm here with Nia from Grassroot News. Nia, tell us some of the events and issues you're going to cover here at Pivot today.
Well, today we're going to talk to some of the young ladies about how they feel about welfare reform, and we're going to talk to Senator Bob.
If Bob Packer was here,
He won his journal.
Take two.
Ron Wyden.
Yeah. Congressman Ron Wyden,
Congressman. Okay.
as well as officials from Adult and Family Services.
Okay. He's a congressman. Okay.
He's a sucker. Okay. Sucker Ron Wyden. No. Take four. Nia, tell us, what are some of the issues you're going to cover here today?
Well, today we're going to speak to some of the young ladies about the effects of welfare reform, and we're going to talk to Congressman Ron Wyden and some other advisors for Adult and Family Services.
Okay, and again, we're at the Pivot program. We encourage you to stay and enjoy the show. Again, you're listening to From the Grassroots. No, that's my radio show.
Yeah.
No, you're watching the Duke Report, our television series. And cut. You want to get a little closer together, please?
She's just getting you're just getting a headshot anyway, right?
Okay. This is not my good side.
Both of them.
Squeeze them in.
Yeah, you guys get closer.
Real friendly.
Sorry. You guys don't look at me.
We're not looking at it.
Okay.
What's
Doug
my first question?
About welfare reform, what are some of the kinds of, your name, first of all?
Okay.
And then what are some of the kinds of things
I
you're
think you
learning
should
here
get
at
closer.
Pivot?
Okay. So if you just start out with your name, should I just start out with your name and then I'll ask
All eyes
you.
are on me.
No, we ain't paying. Are we looking at
Yeah,
that?
don't look at me.
On the computer.
You start with your
Okay.
name and then I'll ask you what are some of the things that you do at Pivot.
Learning.
What are you learning here at Pivot? Okay.
Okay. My name is Aaliyah.
Oh, wait a minute. Have we started yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Action.
Okay.
Okay. My name is Aaliyah Shamsuddin, and I'm learning Lotus, spreadsheet here at Pivot, and typing. I came to a blank.
Do they have some other programs that prepare you to go out into the job market here at Pivot?
Yeah, World of Work, and all kind of support groups, life skills, Word Perfect. I took that already, and I've advanced Word Perfect, and trying to think business English. A lot of good, groups.
And how do you feel about welfare reform?
I'm all for it. I think it's good. That's what we need in America today. Get people off their butts and into work, jobs.
That's so hard.
Yeah.
Come on, Dina, baby. You can do it. You can do it. Thank you.
Okay. If you
Get
can just start with,
together.
okay. We can just start with your name, your age, maybe? Or, no, doesn't matter?
45 years old. We know how
Okay,
old she is.
forget it. Then just the name and then some of the things you learned at Pivot and some of the obstacles. So I'll ask you obstacles, but you can just, okay. You ready?
Ready?
Action.
My name's Dina Tanati. I go to Pivot New Chance. Here at Pivot, I'm learning word processing, advanced word processing, Lotus 1, 2, and 3 spreadsheets, and typing. I'm trying to get up to 60 words per minute. Right now I'm at 50. And also I'm learning everyday life skills and learning how to deal with the outside world, and 10 key also.
Okay, and what are some of the obstacles you've had to overcome in Pivot?
Obstacles to overcome is housing issues, dealing with welfare on, we get so much income like every 2 weeks, and how our food stamps are cut and our cash is cut, but it's letting me see that I can live on a certain budget, and even though my money's cut, I still can live on it.
And speaking about the budget cuts in your income and food stamps, how do you feel about welfare reform?
I think it is great because it shows, I feel that the women that are living on welfare and not doing nothing for themselves or their children need to get out and get somewhere in life and start something for their child, because if they don't do something, then how do they expect their child to get somewhere in life without them showing them how to do it?
Okay. That was good.
Now this is Deborah Lark. She's a CSO. Come here, Deborah. This is my little girl, Nia. And I've instructed Nia to interview you, especially you, of all the staff. We have a wonderful backdrop here, the yellow. It should clash with your because I tried to get that clash. Go ahead, Deborah. You're just gonna make me hurt this lady. You know, she might speak too. All right, you ready? No. I just wanted you could answer some questions that Nia had. Don't take your animosity out on my daughter. Yeah, that's well, it only asked me to say this. Yeah. This is real quick. Nia asked her, hey, there's Mary Karter.
Hi, Mary Karter.
Yeah, why don't you get Mary Karter? I'm going to get Mary Karter, and we want to get you. We'll wait. Okay, Mary has on green now, look lovely with the shell.
What am I getting into, Lanita?
No, you're talking about how welfare reform is impacting the teen parent program. But you're not talking to me, you're talking to me, like everybody else.
Real close. Can I just look
So
at
you're
you?
going to need to warm Mary up, have her say her name and her title.
Okay.
And as well as asking her about welfare reform impacting the teen parent program, you might want to ask her about the budget cuts and how is it impacting, other than, causing your mother to lose her job. That's life.
Okay. So did you want to start with your name and your title, and then I'll ask you the effects of welfare reform on the teen parent program?
Okay.
Okay. And you're not involved with Pivot at all, right?
Just very indirectly.
Okay. Alrighty. You ready?
Ready.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Mary Karter. I work for Portland Public Schools, and I'm the co-coordinator of Teen Parent Services. And welfare reform has brought quite a number of students back to school. We have seen a number of students who really want to be here and are enjoying the school experience. We've also seen a number of students who would rather not be here. But I think when they're with the programs, they're seeing that it's a very positive thing to be in school and get the GED or diploma and go on from there. And a lot of services are being offered by both the school and by AFS to help the students.
Okay.
And our numbers have gone up quite a bit in the last couple of years because of students returning. So we've looked at different ways that we can add to and adjust our services so we can meet their needs, because generally they're older than the students that we had worked with before.
Okay. For those who don't understand the correlation between education and welfare reform and the increase of students here at the teen parent program, can you explain that?
Okay, many of the young people who are teen parents and do not have a GED or diploma are told by their caseworker that to keep their grant, they need to come back to school and get either the GED or diploma. And that's why they're being sent back into school.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Start with asking both of you your names, and then I'll ask just the obstacle. And do you want the microphone first, or? Okay.
I'm Lucretia Couture.
We'll start all over again. Okay. Okay.
You should maybe go to her name and then me.
Okay. All right.
You can answer your question.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Latanya Alexander.
I'm Lucretia Boutar.
And what are some of the obstacles that you'd have to overcome with the Pivot program?
You have to overcome housing problems, daycare problems, and just basically everyday life problems.
Yeah, I had to come over. My friends wanted to go out late at night, and I needed to get up in the morning. So I had to tell them no, because I have reasons to get up, because I want to further my education and get on with a better life, a better lifestyle.
And what are some of the things that you're learning here at the Pivot program, and would you recommend the Pivot program to other teenagers?
I'm learning computer skills, learning a lot of WordPerfect and advanced WordPerfect, things I never knew about before. I've learned how to use the 10-key machine, learning how to type, because before I couldn't type, but now I'm doing pretty good. I'm on 30 words a minute, and I would recommend this program for the people who want to do something with their lives. If you don't want to be here, then don't come, because you won't benefit as much as you will if you want to be here, because I want to be here. So, I'm getting a lot of benefits and a lot of education, and they're helping me out with a lot of different things that I never knew about before.
Basically, it's a clerical training program, and I'm learning how to be a secretary and all the basics to becoming a secretary. And I would recommend this for a lot of people, because they have a lot of support here for people who need the support, and they help you with the daycare and housing and whatever, and getting your life situated so that you can handle and face the world that you have to deal with when you become an employee or worker out there. And I'd say that it's a nice program. It's really helpful to me, and it's benefited me a lot.
And how do you personally feel about the effects of welfare reform?
I'm for it if they give you the right amount of training that you need and provide you with adequate daycare and medical costs after, you've gotten a stable job, but at least give you those benefits up to a year until your other benefits have a time to kick in or take place, at the job site.
Mm-hmm. I agree with the same thing. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And see, daycare seems to be one of the biggest issues with welfare reform, being that young mothers who were at home at one time are now at school. Daycare is a really big issue.
Yeah, it's a very big issue. What they need to do is not only pay for your regular daycare, but you need help with backup daycare, because you never know what might happen and your child is sick or, gets hurt, and the other daycare provider doesn't allow your child to be there at that time. So you need backup daycare. It would be real helpful.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to thank Mary Bromell, because she has really helped getting child care here at the centers, so it's easier for us to come and drop our kids off and be here with us, so that's really helpful. Yeah, daycare is something that we really need, because it's very expensive when you think about it. And when you get thrown out to a job, it's still something that you're not ready to handle yet. And I think that welfare needs to still help us with that.
Thank you.
I got it.
looking for a definition.
Oh, you're framing.
Oh, we're framed?
Yeah, I'm shooting through you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
No, you were perfect.
I want to be in the first place. I'm going to make a lot of guys last time. We didn't even know Yeah. I want to go play.
Yes.
Okay.
Why don't you let them get seated first, and let's see who's around the table.
Okay. In the meantime, can I ask you, because I only have a little limited amount of time.
You do?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you can just, your name and your status, and explain what Pivot is, and then I'll ask you how, since it's vocational training for girls to go out in the workforce, how receptive are employees?
How
That's what I'm gonna, okay.
Pivot is, I'm Anna Street, and I'm the director of Pivot New Chance. It's a Job Corps program that's a partnership program between Job Corps and Portland Public Schools. It's a welfare to work program that's designed to provide business and clerical skills to young women ages 17 to 21 and empower them to go out into the world of work to enhance the quality of life for themselves and their children.
Okay. And how do you think the effects of welfare reform will make employees more receptive, less receptive?
Much more receptive. I think certainly employers will be willing to do their part because they'll certainly get a well-trained product. And for the students themselves, I'm sure, Nia, if you were to talk to them, you'd find out that they're quite supportive of it because they'll get the supportive services they need, like paid transportation with bus passes and childcare, which will enable them to stay in a training program like the Pivot program until they are successful and able to go into the world of work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good.
Thank you.
Crawling
Taking over now with computers. All this technology stuff is just coming out, and you just have to know it. Because if you don't know it, then there's no way that you can survive.
Which of the companies are you looking at?
I don't know yet. All I know is I want to do word processing work, but then again, I want to do secretarial work. So it's like I'm kind of like stuck in between two.
But you'll have a couple options.
Yeah.
That's great.
I have the training for both of them. Coming to Pivot, I have the training for both.
That's great. How about you said secretarial? Which company are you?
I'm not sure, but any that I get the position of secretary.
I think what's really impressed me about Pivot was how many different professional areas people are getting into. It's really a good cross-section of our companies here in the metropolitan area, and it's real satisfying.
Yeah.
Anybody looking at healthcare as a career? What area of health?
I like to, my goal younger in life was to be a veterinarian, but I went to medicine and I didn't quite make it in the medical program, but coming here, I heard that I could go out as a medical secretary and at least get some training in that.
You know, it's interesting because healthcare is growing as an industry, so rapidly. As our society, gets older, clearly our elderly are going to need a lot more in the way of health services and preventive health services and innovative programs. And my sense is for young people, there's going to be a lot of jobs in healthcare. When we start having our conversation, we'll get into it. Let's see what Anna wants to do. What's your pleasure, Anna? Do you want to sit down and brief the press to start with, or how do you want to do it?
I know that you sit down and brief the press.
Well, maybe we'll do it together.
You all, the students talk with you, and you can get their feelings about welfare reform and how they feel.
Particularly to be here at Pivot. My good friend Anna thought that I ought to talk for maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours. and that you guys would really enjoy that, and that would be a great pleasure to you. But I'm not going to inflict that kind of torture on you. I think what we want to do is do this real informally. And let me start by way of saying that I think of all the things that has happened in our district over the last few years, right up at the top of the list is getting Project Pivot off the ground and getting the Job Corps back in the inner city. And my sense for a long time is that you all are doing the heavy lifting. It's you all that are bringing the discipline to get up and take individual responsibility to better yourself. And it's time for government to be a better partner. It's time for government to work on things like assisting with child care and transportation, and assist with education, and assist with health services. And what we thought from the early days when we were starting to plan Project Pivot, and Anna and I and others were scheming and trying to think of the best way to do it, is that what was so exciting about this program is that it really gets everything under one roof, number one, and it ensures real accountability, because from the time you get into the program until your involvement with the private sector, when you're out there with a job and getting ahead, and maybe health care or administrative position or secretarial, this program really stays with people and helps them find their way through those kind of difficult days of getting started and getting into the private sector. My sense is that as Congress gets at welfare reform, and all of you have been reading in the papers and hearing on television that Congress is now working on welfare reform, I'm going to be doing my best to get some of the Project Pivot message back to Washington, D.C. and see it built in to the welfare reform effort. My sense is that if you look at the key parts of welfare reform, parental responsibility and trying to avoid teen pregnancy, making work pay, access to education and training, enforcing child support, every one of those key elements that you have put in place in terms of your daily work at Project Pivot is a lesson that Washington, D.C. ought to pick up on. So I just want you to know that I think it's great to be here. I think in a lot of ways Project Pivot is kind of a social contract. It's a contract between all of you that are in the program and our community to try to better yourselves, to use your energy and your initiative, and to work hard, and to recognize that individuals matter and individuals can get ahead, and that because you're willing to make that kind of individual effort and take that kind of individual responsibility, people like myself in the Congress and Anna, who does such a great job with the program, we're going to do our best to be behind you all the way, number one, and number two, try to take Oregon's lesson to the Congress so that when this welfare reform bill is enacted, there'll be more opportunities like Project Pivot in the days ahead. That's going to be the end of my speech making, so no more torture. And let's just throw this open. You know, don't be bashful and shy, and let's cover anything that y'all are interested in. And I ought to be wearing my glasses, but I see a lot of folks in the back, and you know, let's just fire away. Let's cover your questions, and in fact, if any up here would like to say anything, they're welcome to as well. Would any of you like to say anything, or you want to just go to the questions?
I would like to thank you for your time that you're putting on meeting our needs.
Very much.
Yeah, but that goes for everybody here.
Thank you.
We all thank you very much.
Glad to help. Fire away.
What kinds of things are making the difference for you, and what kinds of supportive services do you think make the difference for young people like yourselves and getting what they need in order to break the dependency cycle on welfare? Why don't you share that with Steve and Congressman Wyden so that they can hear your opinions and what you think?
Well, for me, my needs are basically that I get a lot of support in what I do, and I have helping hands around me. So if I fall down, that they'll be there to pick me back up, you know, and push me along and give me the training, you know, to survive out in the work world. Because without the training, there's no way that I can survive for me and my family. And I'm getting a lot of training here, and it's helping me a great deal. I'm learning so many things that I don't know where to store it all. So it's like I just have it all, this information and all this help and all this support, and it's making my life and my children's life better. It's making it real better.
Well said. Don't be shy. Anna told me y'all wouldn't go bashful on me.
That's right. You have carte blanche. Open up and answer all those questions you asked us. Anybody questions or anything else?
How do you feel about after the welfare reform, when it goes through, having health care and daycare provided for you after you get a job up to a year, you know, until you're stable, until your health benefits kick in from the company where you're employed? How do you feel about that?
Could all of you hear that? It's a really important question. I very, very strongly support this matter of under welfare reform, someone's health care and their daycare staying with them until they start getting the opportunity in the private sector to be able to pay for those services themselves. And in fact, you may have heard I had some hearings on child care recently, and what we found is that without that help in child care, welfare reform is going to be almost impossible to get off the ground. In fact, we had one person come, extraordinarily powerful woman from Baltimore, who in effect said on 5 separate occasions in the past, she had been trying to get off welfare. She'd been working hard. She found a good job in the private sector. And then what would happen is eventually in the private sector she would lose her child care. And then she was faced with the question of how do you make sure that her youngster is safe? She got back in the private sector now, has a good job, but the person who's tending to their child is a nephew who was in a drive-by shooting and is so disabled that they can't even come to the door when the 8-year-old comes up and comes home from school. So this matter of child care and health care benefits, staying with the person who is getting off assistance with welfare or the public, to me is absolutely critical. It's a key investment, and in a lot of ways it would be the biggest mistake to cut it off immediately, because right then is the key period. You've got somebody on their way using individual responsibility to being in the private sector. They're right on the cusp of being able to be out on their own. Give them a little bit more time with child care in particular. They'll be on their own in the private sector, off to the races for a career that allows them to really better themselves. So I'm really glad that you brought it up, and to me it is absolutely key that that child care and health care set of benefits stay with people until they've really had the chance to be in the private sector, where as a result of their individual discipline and personal responsibility, they're going to be off to a good career. Yeah.
How do you feel about the situation in welfare of the mother of the child being with the father, and the way that welfare brings that? It's like they won't allow you to be married and be on welfare usually, and that to me, it breaks up a lot of homes and it breaks up a lot of families because they're forced to say, well, you gotta work, and if he can't find a job, then they can't really be on welfare, and it's hard to bring funds into the home that way.
Y'all are being too logical and making too much sense for traditional government. And I'm pleased that the president has said that he wants to look at some fresh attempts to keep families together. I mean, it's just nuts to think that families that want to get ahead and take care of a youngster literally find it harder to do if they stay together than if they split up. So I think the president's on target in that effort, and I think you're going to see the welfare reform bill, when it's finally enacted, look at some new incentives to keep people together, to keep the family together, rather than drive them apart. And there's an awful lot of evidence that shows that, again, that's a very good investment. I mean, it's something that will pay off for us, rather than be something that will somehow encourage cheating or exploitation of the program. Saw another hand there. Yeah.
Housing is a big issue with these mothers too, about it, parents kicking out to their kids and stuff. And rent is real high now for 2 kids. And I was wondering, is there any resources we could find out about?
The new Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Mr. Cisneros, you've probably seen him on TV working on the earthquake and the like in Los Angeles, has said that he's going to put a new priority on trying to make sure that young families, particularly young women who are by themselves, would be able to have expanded access to housing. Part of the problem has been that there have been funds appropriated in the past, and not all that money has gotten out. So Mr. Cisneros, the new Secretary of HUD, I think will be speaking more about that in the months ahead. Might also add that I've been working on some public housing issues as well, particularly as a result of tenants coming to me and saying that they're frightened about the crime and the drug problem in some of the public housing. And you may have seen that I have proposed that tenants in public housing be allowed to vote to get rid of the guns. And it seems to me that this is a kind of citizen empowerment where citizens ought to be given more control over the safety of their community, and I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to get that passed in this session, as well as an added measure of benefit to folks in the public housing. Yeah.
I can vouch for that because I live in the Piedmont apartments and the real bad. And I've noticed in the past year that I've lived there that there's been a couple shootings that resulted in death. But since then, they have we've got programs going for kids, and they've had meetings, and they have papers that they send out all the time. And they're like making a playground there for the kids, and they're trying to better inform the families that live there. And I've noticed.
Well, I think your point's a good one. And the heart of this, of course, is that we know that a lot of the public housing communities have a very high crime rate, and that citizens in public housing want to come together and look at ways to deal with the crime and the violence. A lot of them are also looking at programs, for example, like trying to bring additional services into public housing. And to me, you can't go wrong on these kinds of things when you're trying to help build a community where people work together more closely. And in the area of crime, in the area of services for public housing, I think those projects can be very successful. Let me see if one of my folks is back there. If y'all could dig up a glass of water before I try to tackle all these great questions, that'd be good. See a young woman there in the back. Yes.
I just want to know, when we find a job, how much help will be out there to help us with our child care, because we will be having to pay for rent and food. We won't have welfare no more once we get our job. So how much help or is there help out there to help us pay for our child care or whatever? Because what if we don't get a job that's going to help us, that may pay a lot of money? We just getting a job to make us have an average living. Is there going to be any help out there to help us pay for our child care?
To me, it's not welfare reform if it doesn't deal with this kind of catch-22 that you're talking about. I mean, there is a very clear kind of catch-22 where we know that there are a lot of folks who would like to get off, welfare, but they have a youngster at home, and what they find is when they go to work, if they're not making a whole lot of money at the outset and they have to pay for child care and transportation and the like, they basically go in the hole and they say, I'll be in better shape to take care of my youngster if I stay on public assistance. So it isn't welfare reform, in my view, unless it deals with the catch-22. You say how much money will be out there for child care, and my answer is it's got to be enough. I mean, it's got to be enough so that people find that hard work pays, and that, in effect, as a result of the individual discipline and people working hard and trying to get ahead, at the outset, when they're trying to get off the ground, the government is there to make sure that they're getting, assistance with child care and health care, so that there isn't a catch-22 and people have to say, shoot, I do want to work, but frankly, I'll be in better shape in terms of taking care of my youngster if I stay home. So the answer to your question, it's got to be enough in terms of child care and health care so that work pays and that individual responsibility pays, and that the government says in that kind of key sort of, I think my friend here said a year or so, and I'm open to what the period should be, but in that kind of key window when, as a result of Project Pivot, y'all have been working hard, getting up early, doing all the things that involve discipline, the government then says in that kind of key window that you're talking about when you're trying to get started, we're going to be there to help with the child care and the health care, and it isn't welfare reform in my view unless it happens. By the way, the government's got a lot of work to do in this regard, because I don't have to tell all of you there's long waiting lines right now for some of the child care slots. So this is a very important issue. Can I reach over you there? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I like to ask, when we graduate Pivot, we get a readjustment. And normally when you get that, it's about over $1,000, depending on how long you stay in your attendance. And when you get that money, welfare takes you off the grant. You don't get the grant no more, and you have to reapply.
Right.
And I think it's unfair because it's money that we've earned, and it's an incentive to get a car, or able to help us, right off the bat to pay for whatever we need to pay for and things. And it's hard when we get thrown off of welfare for that time. And I think we should be able to be allowed to keep our money, our readjustment.
Well, it's very interesting, and Anna, maybe this is a project that the program could pursue after today and help me with, is if you all could take these various kinds of additional services that Pivot's been able, to provide. The question, I guess you call it the readjustment grant or however it's described. Maybe you might take those various kinds of programs, see what they add up to, and then tell me what welfare reform needs to offer in the way of child care and an overall...
We're having funding problems in Oregon, and particularly in Portland, keeping the education piece together. What's being done on a national level so that welfare reform is working alongside education to make sure that they're supporting each other so we can not only get young people off welfare, but keep other people off of welfare?
Well, Mary, not enough in my opinion. And I think there are two parts to this. As all of you know, we've got to sort out in our state the issues relating to ballot measure 5. We've got to make some judgments here at home in our state about where we want the state dollar, to go. My own judgment is, and this is not a federal, issue, this is a state issue, I want to see it go into education, because I think that's the best investment. I want to see it go into law enforcement, both in the area of prevention and in the area of deterrence, where we actually do have strong law enforcement for the kind of violence that we're seeing in our communities. So I think that we've got to sort out dollars that we're going for welfare reform could be used in a Portland public school district. Now, having said that, I want it understood that I think that that can be a significant amount of help. The federal government can help, be a better partner, but at the same time, we have got to decide, and I heard it on TV again last night, these horrendous cuts, in the Portland public schools. We've got to make some judgments among ourselves as citizens where we want that local state tax dollar to go. And I, for one, as a Oregonian, as someone who pays my state taxes, I want to see that state tax dollar go towards education and towards law enforcement, because I think those are the investments that are really important for our community right now.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the state of education when your children are going to school, because I think it affects both you now and your children.
Yeah, Anna.
Congressman Wyden
shared it in detail with our students, but we're starting a Give a Buck campaign to raise money to help take care of first and last month's rent, credit checks, key deposits, etc., to enable our students to move into housing, to stabilize them so they can train and become successful to go on to work. We're also going to plan to use some of that money, if we have to, where young women who are in need of emergency housing and safe housing, where we can pay a person in the community a love stipend, if you will, like $200 a month to hold that student for 90 days and their children, help take care of them for us until we can stabilize them by finding a place for them to live permanently. I'm wondering, the biggest obstacle for us is working with sympathetic landlords who are willing to give a young person with a child or children an opportunity to live among others right in the community where they live, work, and play. Would you be willing someday in the near future to work with us in calling a symposium of landlords, apartment owners, those people who manage property owners, and just helping us to talk to them, to bring our students before them, and not just for the pivot population, because we're not selfish, but we recognize that the district has other programs like the Monroe program, Steps to Success, Insights, teen parent programs. There are a number of programs that are a partner in our state's jobs program and educating our students to get them off welfare, where if we got them sensitive enough to give a young person an opportunity to live next door to a professional, that's how they learn to live. Everybody needn't be carted off into a housing project to live. But if you rent that home and let two students share it with children, if you rent 2 units of your apartment to a young woman on welfare seeking self-sufficiency, we'll work with you to make sure the rent is paid. If there are any problems with noise, etc., that's what our program is willing to offer, an innovative approach to working with people right in our own community. What we need is a voice to help us pull those parties together. Would you be willing to do that for us?
And I think it's a terrific idea. I'd be glad to help.
Thank you.
And in fact, Mr. Savage is, here, many of you may know, he ran the legal aid office and is very experienced at these, landlord issues. We will get on the phone, Anna, right away to the Oregon Apartment Association. There is an association, and open up some discussions with them and be in touch with you on it. I think it's a terrific idea, and in a lot of ways, Pivot, can really be a role model for the community. I mean, that there are a lot of parents like yourselves who are willing, again, to go the extra mile, not ask for any sort of preference, but to say, look, we are anxious to be contributing members to our society. We are working hard. We are showing discipline. We are part of a community that obeys the rules, complies with the laws, uses our individual initiative, and we ask only that government and private institutions such as apartments meet us halfway. And I think it's an excellent idea, and maybe you and Lou can work on this and I'll be happy to get on it right away.
Thank you.
For the younger generation, to me, I feel that if there's some kind of resource for the older population of the women that's on welfare and doesn't have their education very stable, that would be a good resource so that they can get a lot of their education, you know, and get a lot of the benefits, because I appreciate everything that's being done for me now, you know, and I see that I have that where I can do that, but there's a lot of the older population where they're kind of stuck like in a rock, in a hard place, where they're too old to go to the pivot program or to a younger population where they can get the further education that they need to succeed in their life, and yet they're too young for a lot of the other programs, and they're kind of stuck in between the middle, you know. And so I look at that and I say, well, you know, if there could be, you know, a program for them where they can get their education and let their children see, because today's society, you know, I feel that a lot of it is based on, you know, the children looking at the mothers, because a lot of it is the single mothers. There's not really that many family concepts, as I said before. It's mostly single mothers, and the children are looking at that, and they need to see that their mothers are going to succeed and that their fathers can be there sometimes, you know, and they need to see that they can go to school because they're learning from their mothers, and all of that is coming back on them, either way it goes.
Well, good for you. I think it's great that you're advocating for people who can't be here. And I mean, the fact is, as with so many approaches that come up in government, you can't have a one-size-fits-all kind of approach. Is that you're absolutely right. The Project Pivot program is a very good model for a certain group of our citizens, and there are going to be other models that are going to be more appropriate for other populations. And I and others are going to try and make sure in this welfare, reform bill that there'll be a variety of different kinds of approaches. I'm curious and would like to ask you, and Anna and I have talked about it over the years, what about the young men? Are you starting to see more of the young men involved with programs like this? And Anna has talked to me a bit about this over the years, and I'm curious about your thoughts with respect to young men and getting them involved in programs like this as well.
I feel that if they're young fathers taking care of their kids, they should get the same benefits as a young single mother taking care of their kids, because without the resources and information, then they're just going to be stuck on welfare, and they need the help and the information that the young women get who are taking care of their kids, because now there are a lot more fathers taking care of the kids than there was in the past, and they need all the help and resources and information that they can get.
Are you starting to see young men at this program?
Not yet. We had 2 inquiries, and we were just elated that any young man would be brave enough to want to come into this program and train with 50+ women. And so I would be tickled to have one who met the criteria, who was interested in business and clerical to come in.
So we're just waiting. But your question, I know a lot of you have boyfriends and the fathers of your children. When you tell them what you're doing, do they wish that there was a similar program where they could be in training and gaining these same kinds of skills? That's what Congressman Wyden is looking for. Do you feel that there's a need and they wish that there was something to help them transcend from adolescence into manhood while giving them skills and teaching them decision making and giving them support? Mm-hmm. Show of hands. How many of you? There.